the first Surpac tutorial. Um, this program is pretty powerful. You use it for a lot of things. It can do a lot of things, but it can also be kind of frustrating. All of these tutorials are designed so that by following the tutorial, you will be able to perform exactly what you need to do for the labs. This first tutorial covers how to set up your data to be imported into Surpac, how to uh, create a database, how to import the data, and then how to kind of display your survey stations. It kind of just shows points based on what you surveyed. Um, so to start out, whenever you are going to be importing data into Surpac, it has to be set up in a very specific way. Let me navigate here. So as you see in my document, on my student drive in my documents folder, I have my lab 3 data. This is my lab 3 data from last year. I'll be needing those. Alright. So here is my lab 3 data from last year. Um, and I have these two files, but I actually want this one. So this is a Microsoft Excel something something CSV, comma separated value. I don't know. Doesn't really matter, but it's a CSV file. And all it does is that if I were to say open this up in, let me do that. Yeah. If I were to open this with Notepad, you can see that all of the data values are separated by commas. And what that does is allows Surpac to say, all right, here's a data value, and then it hits a comma. That's the end of that data value. It goes to the next thing that you're entering, and it enters it, goes, there's a comma, so on and so forth. So when you're importing data, you have to have them in a CSV format. They should be exported from the data loggers like that, but if they're not, you can always make an Excel file into a CSV file by file, save as, wherever you're going to save it. And then whenever you're saving it, you make sure to go in this drop down menu and choose the CSV file. Whenever you have done the lab and done all your data, you would have entered kind of all of these values. All of your stations will be surface. That shouldn't be too bad. This will come into play whenever you do underground labs. You have underground data, and then on the final project, you'll have surface data and underground data. And then whenever you're taking your points, you have your station ID, which is basically the point that was taken. So this was the first point, second point, third point, fourth point. You will have designated this during the lab. And then here are my two control points. I have the date that it was taken. I have the code that I gave to whatever I was surveying. So this is STK, which I don't exactly remember what we were abbreviating, but we use STK probably for stick or something like that. And then we have CP, which are our control points. And then you have your northing, easting, elevation, and your, like I said, your station type, which in this lab 3 will be all surface. One thing that you have to do every single time that you open it is that you have to make sure that all of these, all of these are first letter capitalized only. Everything else has to be lowercase. It has to be formatted that way, or Surpac won't like it. Um, and then whenever you open up Excel files, these files in Excel, to check this and make sure all your data is okay. Excel is a very smart program. Excel is also not a very smart program sometimes. The format for your dates here, for Surpac to read them, they have to be in this format. For Surpac to recognize it. And as you see, Excel automatically recognizes that, hey, that's a date. Let me format it like this for you. To fix that, you have to make sure to select the row, change it to just text, and then you can enter the date again in that format. And then you just have to copy it to the row below it. And then if you select both rows and drag down, it will automatically copy it. If you were to only have one selected and copy it, you can see how it's automatically changing the day format on there. Instead of it being the 28th, it would say it was the 40th, which is a real day. Once you have everything edited and looks kind of like this, you will make sure to save it. If you're already in the CSV format, it'll ask you a bunch of questions about do you want to keep it in this format, yes or no, this and that. Just say yes, and then leave it open so that Excel doesn't do what Excel does and change all your date formats. When you reopen it, you have to redo it if something's wrong. An example of this is last year, my group entered the wrong control point for our final project, and I had to go in and shift all the data to the correct control point. So I had to spend a pretty good amount of time in the file itself, and if I would have closed it, imported it, seen something that was wrong, opened it again, I would have had to redo this date stamp option 5 or 6 times for 400 rows, 400 odd points, which is no fun. On top of that, we had taken over a couple of days. So just leave your tutorial data open. Well, tutorial data. Leave your data file open. Once you have that saved and you know where it's saved and all that stuff, uh, you'll be good to go to open Surpac. Surpac is on pretty much every computer on campus, but you can't get it in the files. Like if I were to, well, it says it's there, but I don't really think it is. Yeah, it says it's there for mine, but I don't know if it really is. If it's not on your computer, you'll have to go to Apps Anywhere, which is this thing. You can get most applications required for your classes through here. I'm not sure. Some of you may have used it before. It has to do its own thing, and then in here you can get Surpac and just open it. It'll pop up this. It'll take a little while to load. And then Surpac will open. Alright. So this is what your Surpac window looks like. You have a whole bunch of stuff. This program can do a lot of things, and you need to do one of the easiest things to do with it. First things first, every single time you open Surpac for this class, you need to do two things. First of all, navigate. Over here is a window that kind of shows where everything is, and it has this little check mark on this bin folder. That's where your database will save. It's your working directory. So what you have to do is kind of minimize the C drive and navigate to your S drive, which is your student drive, and navigate to whatever folder you have saved the lab data in. In my case, this is my lab 3 data folder. You can either double click on it or right click it. You can double click on it to set your work directory, right click on it to set as work directory. Anyway, you just want to make sure whatever folder your data is in has that little green check mark on it that shows it's open. That means that whenever Surpac generates files, all your files will be put in that folder, and you won't have to go digging in the computer for them. Once you have set your work directory, if you go up to this like gray area, not on any buttons, just kind of this gray area between your window area, if you right click on it, it'll pull up this menu. You have your menus, toolbars, profiles, and windows. You'll want to go to profiles and down to survey. It'll take a little bit to load, and this will give you access to any and all tools you will need to perform work in Surpac for this class. Just about. That's actually not quite right. You might have to use, I think, maybe it was the block model window at some point. Yeah, no, not the block model window. Maybe it was survey. Anyway, you might have to use another window at some point, but for this lab you will only need to be in the survey. Oh, it crashed. How fitting. Now I'm back to this point. I'm ready to create a database. Now in Surpac uses databases. This combines all sorts of. Last year, I was in what's the class? Geostatistics, and the database would store things like my grades for gold in this specific block of this ore body that I am simulating, and it would do that for every single block. It made this big file, and it was all stored within that database. Surpac works off of that, and it's where it puts everything. For this class, you'll want to, as long as you're in this window, you go to Survey Database and New slash Open. If you're not in this window, you might, so I'll cancel it. If you're not in this window, you go to like, let's go, where is it? If you go to just Database, it'll give you the option to like just make a new database. You don't want to do that. You need to make a survey database. Um, so whenever naming your databases, I recommend using something that makes sense. So this is like my lab 3. This is the name of the database. Database names do not like spaces. Use underscores if you feel like you need to use spaces. It also does not like you type in capital letters. Apply. It'll ask you questions, just click apply. It'll ask you another question, just click apply. Ask you more questions, just click apply. It'll take a minute to think. It'll ask you even more questions, just click apply. And then you have created your database. Whenever you take geostatistics with Dr. Kwame and his TAs, whoever is TAing the course at the time, you'll get more into what you're doing when you're creating a database, what you're setting up, what you're defining. But for this class, you don't need to change anything. You just have to click apply until the database is created. Once your database is created, it'll show up over here. It'll create all these files. You need all of these files for it to work. If you try to open them up out of Surpac, it'll open them up in some Microsoft program and it'll show you a bunch of tables, essentially. Once you've created the database, you go back to your server database option and you click import data. So when importing data, it's pretty straightforward as well. Just click apply, uncheck styles so that you don't have to worry about that styles table. And just click apply again. By unchecking that, just click apply again. By unchecking that, it basically makes it to where only the survey stations option appears here. If I had both checked, we would see styles and then survey stations here, and it would be asking me to enter a styles file. You don't have to, but you can. Just uncheck the box, and you only have to worry about not entering it in the incorrect data. Once you do this step, if you just click on these 3 dots, it'll open up the folder that you currently have set as your working directory, and it'll pull up any CSV file. You just click on it, click apply. It'll take a little bit to open. Oh, I have some extra stuff. Why were 5 rejected? I'm sure. I don't know why are these rejected. Oh, I had blanks in there. Okay. Whenever you import this, you will want to have only one record rejected. I had 5 extra lines of just blank data. To make sure that your data is inserted correctly, you go to Stations and View Table. And I think it should... Yeah. You go to Stations View Table, and it will show you all of your survey stations and your points. Again, it's Stations View Table. Stations View Table. Just click Apply. This is a constrained field. You can ignore it. It's if you wanted to say look at just if you had surface and underground points, and you want to just look at your surface points, I would go to my what was it? I would go to my station type, and I'd say I only want surface, but I'm not constraining it because I want to see all the values. Apply, and then it'll show you. So I have all of my data was inserted correctly. Like I said, I only had I had 5 rejected instead of just 1 because it was being weird. I had spaces or something down there. They just weren't empty files, essentially. Uh, Once your data is imported, and you know it's imported, the last thing that I'm going to show you for this video is how to display them. So to display them, you go back to that Stations tab. You go to Display Stations from Database, and then you can just click Apply. Apply again, and here are the 13 points that were surveyed. The next step to this would be kind of defining a string file, uh, and then making your stockpile survey from that. Another little thing about this is how you can kind of how the display styles themselves work. So if you go to your survey display styles, it's going to take a minute. It pulls up this. If you open this up, it shows you every single option that you have to filter it by. We only entered some of this data, but if you were to go out and do an actual survey with a surveyor, you'd have a lot of this data. You'd have the person who surveyed it, how they were surveying it, what type they were what they were doing, yeah. But all we have is our date, our level area, our station type, our X, Y, and Z. So for this filter, I'll use the level area. Uh, and what I can do is right click on it and say get field codes. What that does is it gives me the two codes that I entered into the file, which is my STK and my CP. And what I can do from there is say, well, I want to see which points are my control points. So I'll go into the properties here. Just click on that, go to properties. And I'll choose a shape. Say I want my control stations to look like that. Um, so I go to that, and I want them to be green. So that I can tell the difference between the two things. I set that, I click apply, and it didn't update. That's because I haven't constrained it. So once you change your display styles, you go back into display surface stations, and in this box I will choose level area. What that will do is that since I have defined a display style for the points based on the level area, it will automatically filter it based on the level area code. Just apply again, and boom. Uh, so now it changed the display style of these because that's the color and shape that it is currently set in the display styles. And then you can see the two control points are two different colors. Um, that's all for this one. Like I said, in the next one you'll kind of see how to set up a string file, how to raise it so that you can, and constrain it in such a way that you can make your stockpile data. This is similar to, like I said, visualizing. This will make a 3D model of what you're trying to visualize during the lab. You know, you're walking around a pile of rock that has come off a conveyor, and you're trying to figure out how much rock is there. So that it's for tax reasons, it's for storage reasons. You want to know if you're having this big order coming up, why you want to do it. Uh, but that is all for this tutorial. Email me, Corey, or Dr. Tagi, or Eugene if you have any questions about Surpac. Um, I will make myself available either out at the mine, if I'm allowed to do that, or uh, via Zoom or some other video call service, if you prefer that, to kind of help you if you get stuck on anything.